What's up, y'all? Hopefully y'all can hear me okay. This is Matt with BroPilots, and finally got a camera up and running, which is pretty cool. Hopefully y'all don't think I'm ugly. Anywho, trying to figure out how to change the name of our stream here on Mixer. But if I can't figure out how to change it, I'm going to bail here on that in just a moment. Alright, I'm going to bail on that. So, what's up? Anyways, today we're going to continue our East to West series or adventures or whatever you want to call it. And today I think what we're going to do is go from KCMH, which is where we left off last time, which is, I believe it's John Glenn Columbus International Airport. And today it'll be a little bit of a longer flight, and we're going to fly to KPIA, which is General Downing Peoria International. So, let's go ahead and update our destinations here. KCMH to KPIA. Alright, so hopefully our little top bar across the top is accurate. We're about 314 nautical miles to go. Good deal. Alright, Creighton Gibbs, you're saying the sound is distorted. All the sound, or is it just the music, or what do we got going on here? Turn that down a little bit. I'll try to turn those sounds down a little bit. Hopefully it's not quite so loud. And I think you, Grant, I think you're joining us from YouTube, so thanks for watching my speeches. Alright, I'm going to try to turn it down just a little bit. Hopefully my microphone's not quite so loud. Okay. Alright, we're going to go ahead and get started. If you guys, I've made some adjustments to the audio, so if you guys notice some stuff, make sure to call me out. I can try to adjust that audio as we go. But again, today we're making a flight. So first things first, let's go ahead and finish up our flight plan here. IFP Stop Motions. Hey, what's up, buddy? Glad you could join us. So, I sound like a broken robot. Alright. That's no fun, right? It's unfortunate. Let's see if I can't figure something out here. Check, check. I'd like to sound good and not like a broken robot, so y'all give me just a moment. Maybe I think I know it. I just added this camera for the first time, and it may very well have something to do with that camera, so let me see if I can figure out what's going on here. Hope everybody's doing good. Okay, check. Okay, I can hear it distorting. Now I can actually try to fix it, so let's see what we got. Check. Stop distorting. Alright, give me just 2 minutes, guys, and then we'll get on our way. Check. Check. That sounds too far away. Check. All right. Hope that seems to be a little better. I think. Yeah, that seems a little bit better. Let me know if you guys can hear it now. In my headphones, it sounds a lot better though. So if y'all are happy, then I'm happy. And we can get moving. Woohoo! All right. Well, good deal. Appreciate you guys' input. So first things first, let's go to FlightSim. I'll hop right into it, am I right? All right, we're going to go into FlightSim here. And we want to figure out what route we want to take first before we do anything else. And we know where we're going. So let's go ahead and start with the routes button on the top right here. And that's going to bring up a couple of the recommended routes and things that ATC normally would clear you for. And right off the top, there's this top route via VHP and Becky, flight level 300. I've done a little bit of research. So the flight service ceiling of the TBM900 is actually 31,000 feet. So we can pick this recommended route here of 30,000 feet. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll start there. So let's select that route. Update to flight level 300. Okay. So now we can see our route has been a little bit updated, and that's going to be one of those recommended routes that ATC will normally give you, or ones that they prefer you go on when during times of higher traffic and stuff. Now with this whole COVID thing, I don't know that they would care too much. They'd probably give you whatever you asked for, but let's just do this. I think I like this. It's still a pretty simple route. Shouldn't take very much longer than direct anyway, so we'll go ahead and go with that. Now the other thing we need to decide on early before we get flying is probably which approach we're going to fly once we get to the airport. And so to do that, we'll go ahead and hit the procedure button on the top right, and then we'll click on this approach part on the left, and that's going to bring up all the possible approaches that we can fly into here. As of right now, FlightSim isn't recommending any of these based on winds, which is kind of weird. But at the bottom, you can see that it says wind 020 at 11 to 29 knots. Goodness, it's pretty brutal. So, let's say, and then also changing between 350 to 050. So let's say runway 4 is our best bet here. So we're gonna do the RNAV into runway 4. That'll be our the approach we're gonna try to shoot when we get there. And so our initial approach fix we can either set to McClenn or Chris. Let's do Chris as our initial approach fix. So that's what our approach to the airport is going to look like from Becky. We'll take a left turn and fly that way there. Sadie. It's all these like children's names. It's interesting. Not children, but people. So I'm sure somebody named all these different points after their kids, whoever was responsible for this. Okay, we'll add that to the route. And it looks like we're pretty good. We have our route all planned out here. And thing we're going to do after we start the plane is program all of this into the GPS. But let's just go in here and make sure we can see this approach plate really good. Looks like we're going to be encountering some weather on the way here, but that'll be fun. That'll make it a little bit more realistic, right? Okay. All right. Well, now that we have this in here, let's hop into the plane for a minute, get everything started up and warming up before we start with our programming phase. So let's open up the payload. For those of you who don't know, this is the Hotstart TBM900. It's not cheap. It's about $60, but it is a fantastic model. I absolutely love it. There's a whole maintenance model, like the parts on this plane wear down and stuff like that, and I think it's just incredible. It makes it really kind of realistic, and you get a little bit of an idea of what it might actually be like to own a TBM, which is the dream, am I right? So let's take off these different static wicks, make sure all the caps and covers are off, Double check our fuel. All right, we're full in the left tank and we're full in the right tank. Let's make sure to close them, because if you leave it open like this, you'll actually end up have fuel streaming out of your wings, and you know, you're losing fuel at a faster rate than you need to be. And that all works in this model, which is fantastic. So we'll close this door. Fuel is full, caps are off. Looks like we're pretty good, ready for a start. So we'll keep the chocks in for now. We won't take the chocks out until before we leave. So, all right. Parking brake is gonna come on. Looking up, crash bar is gonna come on, and we're gonna set our source to battery and turn the alternator to main. I'm gonna turn on the lights because I like to have the lights here a little bit. So let's wait for some of these things to start up so we can actually start a timer here on the primary flight display before we start with the actual startup process. The startup process is pretty dependent on a timer. There's a couple of things you need to take note of depending on how long your startup has been running. So we'll make sure that's running before we start. All right. So here on the primary flight display, we're going to bring up the timer reference, or the timer, and get ready to start in just a second. So I'm going to turn the ignition's on auto. I'm going to make sure I turn the boost pump on. Let's turn these guys off.
Warning, okay.
And let's start the timer. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and start the starter. So what we want to see, holding the starter for 2 seconds and let go. As soon as this NG hits 13%, which it already has, we're going to introduce a little bit of fuel. Now what we want to see is we want to see this NG number here at 50 before the timer reaches 50 seconds. So we're about 20 seconds in.
TAWS system test. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Claudia. Appreciate the TAWS system test. So it looks like we're pretty spot on time so far. We're on schedule to hit 50 by 50. And all these numbers just turn green once we're there. So, and as soon as we're at that 50, what we can do is go ahead and bring the plane into flight idle and let the plane continue to start up. All right, we're at 34, 35, and we're already almost at 50. So we're good to go. So let's bring it into flight idle. All right, good deal. And let everything start warming up. And let's continue on to the rest of our checks. Taxi lights coming on. Our boost pump is going to go to auto. Autopilot trims come on. Fuel selector is going to auto. All right. Let's go to our ECS. Environmental control system. Our AC is going to go into auto. Our bleed's coming on. Pressure mode is set to auto. Come on. There you go. There you go. And our inertial separator is also going to come on. Okay. IFP Stop Motions asks, did you use any special site to make the flight plan? Yeah, so I'm using FlightSim, which is on my iPad. There's a subscription you have to pay in order to use it, but you can actually use it on your simulator. You can use it in real life as well. I actually am a private pilot in real life. I'm working on my instrument rating right now as well. And this is the app that I use to do all of my flight planning and even in-flight data and METARs and weather and traffic and hazard alerts, terrain alerts. There's tons and tons of stuff that you get from using FlightSim. I'm a huge fan. I'm not sponsored by them, although I wish I was. Am I right? So I ain't bashful. I ain't shy. FlightSim, hit me up. So really, really amazing, incredible software. I wouldn't even imagine flying without it. It's just incredible. Let's go back to the plane here. Inertial separator is on. That takes about 30 seconds. That's why it took a little bit of time for it to actually come up and tell me that it was there before. So let's get this stall warning and pitot heat on, just because I know we're going to be running into some clouds and stuff. So I want to make sure that if we're in precipitation, we have those heaters on. So plane's starting up. Let's go ahead and look at our flight plan and see what we want to do here. I'm going to program in my flight plan from FlightSim into the GPS here so that we can have the plane fly on its own, do some stuff with the autopilot. So first things first, let's clear out the old flight plan. the last one that I flew. Okay, so KCMH, and then we're gonna hit VHP. Okay, VHP. That's our second point. Then we're gonna go Becky. And actually, before we go any further, I'm gonna look over here and pick up my Bose headset right here. It makes it a little quieter. Nice, there we go. Ooh, so nice, I love it. And then we're gonna do, I'm not gonna load the approach yet. I'm actually gonna load the final airport first and then load the approach. So KPIA is the final, is the airport. KPIA, enter. Yes, that's great. Okay, looking good. And then I'm gonna hit the procedures button and go ahead and select an approach that we wanna fly. So select approach, and we decided on the RNAV GPS runway 4. So let's scroll down here and find that. The RNAV 4 GPS LPV, good deal. Hit enter, and it's gonna ask us, okay, what is the initial approach fix? What are you gonna be flying through? How are you gonna get here? And we said that we're doing it through Chris. So I'll find Chris on here as a list. All right, good deal. And we do have minimums here. All right, so minimums are gonna be yes. And then it's gonna say, okay, what are those minimums? For those minimums, let's go back to FlightSim. Let's look at the approach chart here. And if you look all the way down here at the bottom, it tells you for the kind of approach. Since we're doing an LPV approach, basically on any given approach, on an RNAV approach, if you look at the top, there's just letters up here. It says WAAS. That means if you have a WAAS-enabled GPS, which we do in this airplane, then we can go down here and fly down to LPV minimums. So LPV minimums for this approach are 857 feet and a half statute mile of visibility. So let's just call it 860 feet. And so let's enter in 860 feet into our barrel minimums here. All right, I'm gonna look at the chat here in just a minute after I finish loading in this flight plan, make sure we do it all right, and I'll see if I can answer a few questions. We're gonna load this approach, but we're not gonna activate it yet because we have not been cleared to fly it yet. We should not activate and start actively flying it until ATC clears us. So we're just gonna load it. And let's just look and see if that all looks right. Just by looking at the approach, if it looks like we're flying in the right part of the world. Stuff like that, yeah, so cool. IFP stop motions. Are you going to show some videos of your instrument license classes? Probably not, just because instrument lessons are really boring. It's a lot of just flying, just listening to ATC and just flying. So honestly, probably not, unless there is an overwhelming, request for that kind of thing. Yeah, but thanks for asking. WG Lewis, what simulator is this? This is X-Plane 11. I think the tag for this says Flight Simulator 10 or Flight Simulator X, but it's not. It's X-Plane. Okay, and let's bring this back to my map view, and we'll go back into the plane. So we now have this loaded in here. We have our minimum set. Let me hide this timer here. So our minimums are set. So now that we have all of that, let's go ahead and get the local weather here to make sure our barometer setting is correct, because I don't think it is. So to do that, I'm actually gonna go back to FlightSim and find out what the ATIS frequency is here. And it looks like for here, that's KPIA. Let's go back to the home one. It's probably already loaded in my radio, but I'm gonna double check that I have the right one. So the ASOS is 124.6. which I do already have in my COM2, so we'll just turn on COM2 and see what it says.
John Glenn Columbus INTL Information Foxtrot. 2000 Zulu weather. Wind 130 at 11, visibility more than 10. Sky conditions 5,000 scattered, 13,000 broken, temperature 19, dew point 8. Altimeter 2984.
2984.
Arriving runways 10 right, 10 left. Departing runways 10
so
right,
runways 10
10 left. Advise on initial contact you have Foxtrot.
All right, and then we have information Foxtrot, which means when we call up ATC, ground clearance or taxi, we would tell them we have information Foxtrot, which that way they would know that we have the current weather and we know what the runways they're using and stuff like that. So they know that there's a certain understanding of we have some information already. We've done a little bit of work here. So we're not going to be flying with ATC today with any kind of network. In my experience, it's just kind of hit or miss. So we're just going to I'll be making pretend calls here and there and making decisions based on, assumptions that I can assume ATC would have been giving us. So, okay, so we have the local weather set here. We know what runways we're going to be using. We're going to be departing runway 10 left or right, and we can take a closer look at FlightSim and kind of see how to get where we're trying to go. So if we are right here right now, I think what we're going to do is probably taxi out. I think the best and easiest thing will be for us just to taxi out onto Delta and just go down here and depart 10 right like that. So we'll just we're gonna head in that direction. So let's go back to our main screen here. I'm gonna hold the brakes, turn off the parking brake, and remove those chocks. This is us standing here ready to go in the beautiful TBM900. Man, I love this plane. This is my dream plane. I will one day own it. You mark my words. I'll have it, and don't you say otherwise. All right. I'm gonna go ahead into taxi throttle range and get moving. We'll take a right on our taxiway up here. All right, and I know the frame rate is a little jumpy here, but I'm working on getting myself a little bit of a stronger video card. If this stream picks up traction, if y'all like what you see, I'm absolutely willing to invest a little bit more money in this, but I'm gonna wait just a little bit and make sure that it's something that makes sense before I try to talk my wife into it. Now, my wife is very supportive, so I just don't want to ask her for it if it's not something that's necessary. So share the stream with your friends. If you guys think it's interesting or funny or really bad, it's so bad, in fact, that you have to share with your friends, that's fine. Just do that. No worries. I understand. As long as you're sharing with your friends. Also, this is a lot more fun when you actually have people chatting here, so it's cool that I see you guys are on here. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate it, guys. While we're moving here, I'm going to go ahead and put the flaps into takeoff configuration. And you can see the flaps coming down here. And the last thing I forgot to do is actually put in our my presets for my autopilot. So I'm going to go ahead and, while we're getting ready to taxi here, put in my altitude, which I believe we requested, or we got 30,000 feet. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the altitude bug here. You can see that moving up here on the primary flight display. Okay, and then let's do the rest as soon as we're holding short of the runway. I think we're about at the entrance, so don't want to blow right past this. All right, WG Lewis, I'm enjoying the ride too. Glad you're here. So this stream will probably be about an hour and a half or two even. So feel free to come and go as necessary. I'm just here to have a good time, just like y'all are. Yes, I have P-stop motions. I'm looking forward to Flight Simulator 2020 very, very much. I'm beyond stoked for that. I applied for their beta, a couple months ago, but they did not accept me. So, what are you gonna do? No worries. Okay, last thing. What I want to do is, before I take off, I want to kind of pre-program my autopilot to do what I want it to do. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to preload flight level change mode, which means the airplane is going to climb to my pre-selected altitude, and I'm going to tell it at what speed. As opposed to just setting a vertical speed, which if I set a vertical speed of 5,000 feet per minute, my plane's going to try to do that, and it just can't. And so what it's going to do is it's going to stall. But if I tell it, hey, let's do flight level change mode, if you look at this right here on the primary flight display where the autopilot controls are, I'm going to tell it to climb at 125 knots. Let's do 124. I think that's the best climb for this airplane. So I'm going to tell it to do whatever you need to do, but don't go under or over 124 knots. And that way we'll get the best possible climb rate at a safe speed. So we're going to set 124 knots there, and I'm going to preload my roll settings to follow the GPS. So my autopilot, as soon as I turn it on, will follow my GPS for lateral navigation and flight level change mode until it hits 30,000 feet. And that's exactly what we want. And the leg that we have loaded currently is direct from this airport to our first point on our flight plan, which is going to be VHP. So as soon as we're, so that's ready to go. So as soon as we take off and at our safe altitude, we can go ahead and enable our autopilot, and it'll start flying the plane for us. All right, we're looking here. De-icing is good to go. Our inertial separator's on. Parking brakes off. I'm holding the brakes right now. Our AC and everything is set according to the checklists. Landing lights coming on. Nav's on. Strobes on. All the lights are on. Everything's set to auto, and we're good to go. I do believe we're ready to take off, gentlemen. All right. Let's take the runway. I'd make a call here. Ask the tower, TBM900 Tango Bravo is holding short runway 28 left. I'm sorry, 10 right. Ready for departure. They'd give us a clearance. If we'd read that clearance back and take the runway and get ready to depart, they'd give us some kind of initial, fly runway heading and tell us we'd have altitudes to expect from them. So they'd say, cleared 3,000, expect 7,000 10 minutes after. So we'd be going with that. And as soon as we took off, they'd probably hand us off to a departure controller. And that departure controller would then give us further clearance. All right, we'll get up in the air here in just a second, and we'll continue with the questions. All right, so I'm holding those brakes. All right, and now what I want to do is I want to get my torque percentage here, my power, up about as close to 100 as I can without exploding. And then we'll get going. We'll get taken off. 80, 90, that's close. All right, and we're letting go of the brakes, and we're headed off. Although I think our first waypoint's actually behind us, so we're gonna do like probably a climbing right-hand turn to get on course. All right, that power's at 85. I can probably inch that up a little bit more. Good to go. Now we're gonna rotate at 85. We're gonna start a nice little rotation, and we have 85 knots. Some back pressure on the yoke. All right, what I'm going to try to do is manually get as close to that 125 as I can, just because I know that that's a good climb rate for this plane. All right, landing gear and flaps coming up. And autopilot's coming on. And the autopilot's going to try to get 124 knots, and it looks like it's going to be making a left turn. All right, the plane is doing the flying from here. And I need to do my part of making sure that it's happy, right? So I need to be managing the power. I need to be just double checking any navigation and stuff like that. Yeah, it should be a nice view. Let's see what we got going on. It does, looks real nice. So how do you know how far you need to go when flying in the pattern? Just generally when there's a VFR flying, I think normally, like the first time I flew around with my instructor, I'd kind of just take cues from my instructor and know how far I need to be. But general rule of thumb is I think if you lose your engine while flying in the pattern, you should be able to very comfortably land on the runway. If you're too far away, if you're farther than that, I would definitely consider checking and making sure that you're close enough. That's to me, that's what I do. Ultimately, you got to be safe. The number one thing. The more and more you do stuff in aviation, the more you see that literally everything boils down to boils down to safety. Every regulation is there in the interest of safety. So when in doubt, do the safe thing. Okay, our plane is continuing our climb out. As soon as we hit 4,000 or 5,000 feet, something just kind of a little bit higher, we're going to turn off our inertial separator. Our inertial separator, I think about it as just like a big filter, as a big air filter that goes in and prevents debris and birds and stuff like that from getting into the engine, because it's a turboprop engine, which is basically, it is still a propeller, but it's not an internal combustion engine. It's literally a turbine, and so it's going to prevent stuff from getting in and really messing with debris from messing with that engine. So as soon as we get up to 4,000 or 5,000 feet, which I'm no expert, believe me, but what I've heard is that that's kind of where birds don't generally fly too much higher than that, just generally. And so you can start to turn off your inertial separator. Let's just do it now. And what that does is it allows more air into the engine, and so you get better performance out of the engine. The other thing we need to look out for is as we're climbing, the air is becoming less and less dense, and we need to realize that as the air becomes less dense, our engine performance is going to be less and less. So we need to add more and more power back in order to continue to maintain our performance. You can see it creeping up right now because our inertial separator is off now. And so as we're getting a little bit more and more air in here, we are now getting better performance. It's going to stop here in just a second and stop climbing and going to start to come down again. So if we look at FlightSim really quick, you can see the autopilot is making that left-hand turn, and it's going to make a right turn here in just a moment to intercept that flight plan that we've made. So let's go back. You can actually see it started that right-hand turn. Oh, we got a message saying the engine's producing too much power. We got to bring that power back. Oh goodness. I think our inertial separator just completely opened up there. So I should have been watching that and not looking for cool views of my airplane, am I right? Okay, we got that power back down to a manageable level. All right, we're climbing up. Looks like should be reaching our, what's this saying? We're flying to VHP, and this says we should be there in 1 minute and 5 seconds. That seems kind of fast. Or maybe it's saying we're going to intercept in 1 minute. I'm not sure. But either way, we have, there's no way. We have 157, looks like 157 miles to VHP, so. Yeah, I really had to practice on starting turboprop engines. I don't have any experience in anything other than like a Cessna 172 and a Piper Archer, and so this model actually comes with a fantastic tutorial when you just buy it and start it. And I just kind of memorized that the checklist that they give you, and there's even a checklist on the primary flight display here. If you go to checklist, it comes up and you have a starting checklist, all of this stuff. It's fantastic. I highly recommend that for sure. That's literally the way I learned how to start this plane and fly it, and now I actually feel pretty comfortable, to the point where, and this is probably a little big-headed of me, and probably a little overconfident, but I feel like if I was flying right seat in this airplane, I could at least in a really high stress situation be of some assistance. But the pilot was like, oh my gosh, I can't just, put the gear down or something stupid simple like that, or like, oh no, turn off this, whatever, something silly and simple. I could at least alleviate a little bit of load. Now that obviously that could be really, really silly of me to say, but I feel like I fly this model a lot, so. All right, well, there's some airport over here in the distance. Wonder what that is. I can check FlightSim and see what that is. That looks like KTZR Bolton Field. So And that's the airport behind us that we just took off from. Big old airport. All right, we're climbing up, climbing through 9,000 feet, on our way to 30,000 feet, up there with the airliners. I would be interested to try the PC-12 though. That's a cool airplane. Okay, IFP stop motions. You're asking if FlightSim has charts. Do you mean if you're asking for approach charts? Yes. Let me bring up FlightSim really quick. So it absolutely does. So I've already loaded the approach in FlightSim so that I can have it here. And if you bring it up, I can actually show you right here. This is the actual approach that we're going to be flying. And it's also geo-referenced. So if you see that blue, there's like a blue square around this middle part. That part is geo-referenced, meaning when we're on it, when we're on this part of the approach chart and we're actually getting close to these actual points, you'll see our little airplane on there, which is tremendously helpful. It's just a really good, it's like a secondary system just that you know you're in the right place, you're flying, and you're actually at the points you're supposed to be on. I absolutely love it. WG Lewis, I am flying to 30,000 feet. That's what the service ceiling of this TBM is 31,000, and the recommended altitude for this route was 30,000, so I selected that straight out of FlightSim. That's what FlightSim recommended based on previously approved and recommended routes from other pilots and from ATC. So this initial leg, we're climbing pretty slowly. We're climbing at 120 knots, and so our speed over the ground is pretty slow. It's like, it says 154 knots. Okay, we got a little bit of tailwind, all right. But as soon as we level off at 30,000 feet, we're going to speed up significantly because we're going to level off, and the plane cruises at like 220 or 230 airspeed. And so if we have a little bit of a tailwind on top of that, we're going to be cooking. So, IFP stop motions. You're from Brazil. All right, good deal, man. You said it's really hard to find free charts around where? You're saying around there. I'm not quite sure. Generally speaking, though, all of these charts are published by the FAA, and so there's a lot of free charts that you can get them online. There's a couple of websites where they're available, but FlightSim is a really nice app because it takes a lot of free information and free data, right? Like you don't have to pay for METARs and weather updates and all this stuff. There's a lot of really, really good government-issued resources, but FlightSim just does an incredible job of putting it all in one place and in a really, really easy to digest format that you can just by looking at it, you know the situation of what's going on. I really like it. All right, the weather here is still pretty clear. I think though, what's going to happen is we're gonna hit some clouds up down the road, even some precipitation. But hopefully we'll be up above it, so that'd be great. All right, we're climbing right now. The next thing I'm kind of preparing for is once we pass 18,000 feet. Once we pass 18,000 feet, I need to change our barometric pressure, this 2984 to 2992 to the standard pressure, because after a certain altitude, once you hit Class A airspace, which is above 18,000 feet, ATC likes for everybody above that just to be on the same barometric pressure so that they know they're a little bit better about their spacing. They know that everyone's on the same pressure, and so the altitude references that they're giving each other don't vary based off of different altimeter settings. IFP stop motions. Am I using the default clouds? Yeah, I think so. I'm using default time and default weather settings, meaning like tracking the current time and the current weather settings as if I'm making this flight in real life. And I don't have any kind of weather packs or terrain pack or anything to improve the graphics or the quality of the visuals in X-Plane at all. So yeah, this is stock X-Plane except for this airplane. I purchased this airplane and stuff, but yes, all the settings are stock. All right, we're at 15,000 feet. We have 3,000 feet to go until our standard pressure. And as you can see, our power is at 71%. So I actually probably should have been monitoring that a little bit better. So now that we're up a little bit higher with a little bit less dense air, we can ease the power up a little bit more, get closer to our peak performance. So I try to get it as close to 100 as I can without going over. Oh, I was getting close. 98. And so you can almost see almost immediately the airplane is able to pitch up a lot higher. Because remember, the airplane is trying to maintain an airspeed. So if I don't have as much power as I need, the airplane is going to pitch down to maintain the airspeed that I asked it to maintain. So if I give it more power, it's going to start to speed up and go faster than the airspeed I asked it to maintain. So it's going to naturally pitch up to bring that airspeed back down. IFP stop motions. Yes, I have. I did send them a request to join the Insider program. It was a while back though. It was like, I don't know. I want to say it was in like October or November or something like that. And at this point, I think we're getting probably pretty close to it actually coming out. So I don't know that I'm gonna try to get into the Insider program or anything. So I think I'll just wait for it to come out. What I am super excited for is I have the honeycomb yoke, which I really like. They're supposed to be coming out with this awesome throttle quadrant that has like autopilot controls and stuff built in and like a trim wheel. That looks cool. I'm really excited for that. Again, I'm coming up on 18,000 feet, and I think FlightSim, actually check it out. FlightSim's going to tell me that we're reaching the transition altitude, so I'm going to let her, it's a woman speaking in FlightSim, so I'm going to let her tell me it's transition altitude before I switch.
Climbing through transition altitude.
Y'all see that? How dope is that? So then I'm just going to press this baro button, and that takes it to standard barometric pressure. So, cool. Now we're continuing to climb. Our power keeps coming down, so we're just going to keep on inching it up. Get as much power out of this bad boy as we can. Okay, so they're sending new invitations. Yeah, maybe tonight I'll send another request. We'll see. That'd be cool. Although I think they're pretty tight on their lockdown. I don't think they really want anybody sharing much any screenshots or anything like that. So even if I did get into that, I wouldn't be able to share it with anybody because they are no joke on that stuff. I'm really excited. I heard the multiplayer stuff is supposed to be really good. The graphics are supposed to be amazing. Because that's one thing I felt that I feel like flight simulators have been like 10 years behind all technology in general, which is kind of silly. And so if this kind of catches them back up with all the other video games and everything, it would just be awesome. Really looking forward to that. Cool. So while we're climbing, let's get a little bit ahead of the airplane. Let's do what we can to go ahead and preload some stuff for the approach. Namely, let's just go ahead and preload the ATIS frequency for our destination airport. So I'm going to go to FlightSim and find out what that frequency is. And that ATIS is 126.1. 126.1. So I'll go ahead in here and load that into COM2. Well, 126.1. Put that into the active for that. And what I'll do is actually go ahead and just turn on COM2. We probably won't hear it yet, but what'll happen is as soon as we're in range, we'll just start to hear it. And then that way we'll know we're getting it as soon as we possibly can. Is this the only payware aircraft I have? No, I have a few more. I have a Piper Archer. In real life, that's the plane I fly. So I have a payware Piper Archer. I don't recall who it's from. Also, I have a Eurofox. It's like a bush plane. It's supposed to be, I think, kind of like the kind of similar to the Kit Fox. and that one's fun to fly. But right now I'm specifically in IRL. In real life, I'm working on my instrument rating. And so what I try to do is I try to fly in the sim as much as I possibly can, just to nail down the procedures and the processes, and just make sure all my checklists are good. And I'm always thinking about the right things during the right phases of flight. Because the physical flying of the airplane on a simulator, like with the yoke, it's just not that close of a representation of what it's like flying in real life, because you just don't feel it at all, right? And in a real airplane, you have all the sensations and the feelings behind flying an airplane. But on the simulator, it's not that realistic, right? I mean, you can get close, but it's just not the same. And so I usually just try to get my programming, my thoughts, my processes, manipulating the autopilot, loading in the flight plan, kind of more or less learning how these G1000s work, stuff like that. That's the kind of thing that I try to go for. Make sure I'm briefing the approaches properly, things like that. That's what I really try to do when I'm flying in the sim. So everything right now is just to serve my instrument rating. I'm a little over halfway done. You need 40 hours of simulated or actual instrument time, and 50 hours of cross-country PIC time. And I'm at a little above half on both of those. So I have like 25 out of the 40 hours I need, and I think like 27 out of the 50 that I need. So, and then there's like a 250 nautical mile cross country you have to do with ATC, and making 3 separate approaches of different types at different airports. And so me and my instructor have already done that. We did this. I live in the South Carolina, and so we did this little loop between Greenville, I believe Athens, Georgia, Columbia, South Carolina, and then back to Greenville. We did a VOR approach at one, did an ILS approach at another, and an RNAV at the last one. So looks like we'll be flying into something here. All right, we're at 26,000 feet. We're at 4,000 feet to go, and then we should really speed up after that. Again, this is a really nice model. Look around, look in the back over here. I believe you can actually, you can take this tray table out and stuff like that. You can turn on these lights, all kinds of crazy stuff. But again, my computer isn't great, and so it has a hard time dealing with this, so I normally just leave it alone. Climbing through 27,000 feet. Let's see what we got in terms of weather here. Yeah, I'm sure we'll hit something a little further down. Not something I don't know if it's something I would fly into in real life, at least at this stage in my training. I'm very careful. Do I fly in any network? Yes, occasionally I'll fly VATSIM. And VATSIM is pretty good, but I think it just depends on what airports you're flying to and whether or not there are controllers there. So sometimes it's easier for me just to file the flight plan that I want to fly, and I just fly it manually without any kind of ATC clearance or anything like that. Okay, interesting. So at this point, I think I was trying to add my power a little bit here. Add more and more, but it looks like at this point, right there, the engine is overheating. So the engine is going over 800 degrees Celsius. So what I need to do is during this climb, we're not going fast enough to cool the engine enough. And so basically, I think we're about at this altitude. We're pretty much stuck at this, 87, 88% power setting until we level off at 30,000 feet and start to get more air flowing through the engine and cooling it down. So I think we'll see that once we're up there and we're not climbing anymore, we'll probably be able to get some power back into it. All right, that was a 1,000 feet remaining warning. So we'll be at our altitude here in about 700 feet. And then our GPS is going to continue to fly along the GPS route at 30,000 feet, maintaining that altitude. WG Lewis, I am sort of familiar with DCS. It seems awesome, and I'm very, very excited to download it and try it. I just haven't had a ton of time to do that. But yes, it looks awesome. I love the idea of all the military jets that they have, and I've heard the graphics are pretty outstanding. Yeah, I've been meaning to look further into it a little bit. Looks like my X-plane is having some trouble. I think it's frozen. But normally it figures itself out within a couple of minutes. So maybe in the meantime, I can continue to look at some stuff on FlightSim here. So FlightSim is messed up too. It looks like all of a sudden I took a sharp left turn and went home. For X-plane has stopped putting out its location data, so FlightSim doesn't think I'm where I am anymore. So maybe what we can do is look at some more information here on the approach. This might be a good time to go ahead and just brief the approach really quick. Okay, so this is the approach for RNAV GPS runway 4 into the General Downing Peoria International Airport. This is a WAS approach, which means we'll be using our LPV minimums of 857 feet. X-plane just came back, good deal, so we're good to go. The ATIS, we already have that prepped, so we're ready to go on that. We're doing an initial approach fix of Chris, and then we're going to be making a right turn onto our final approach course of 041 until the paddle intersection, which is where we should intercept our final approach course. That's Chris. That's paddle. We'll make a right-hand turn here, and then we'll follow the approach all the way in. So we should be at 2,700 feet by the time we reach Sadie, and then we should be at 2,400 feet by the time we reach paddle, and then we continue on down to our minimums of 857 feet. If at 857 feet we don't see the runway environment, we're going to go around, and we're going to go missed. So we're going to go execute a missed approach procedure. And the missed approach procedure for this is a straight out climb to 2,300 feet, and then fly direct WECAR, which looks like it's pretty much just direct out from the end of the runway to WECAR, and then we're going to do a holding pattern there and decide what to do from there. So, all right, now that that's been briefed, we should be back on path here. All right, and we're speeding up because we've leveled off now. Now our engine seems to be doing good. Let's see if we can squeeze that power up a little bit. Looks like we have about a 15 knot headwind, which really isn't that bad for this high up, which gives us a ground speed of about 280 knots. So we have, I think, 117 nautical miles till we hit VHP, which is going to be in about 24 minutes at our current speed. But I think we're also speeding up right now, so maybe that'll be even sooner. And you can tell that that time is running a bit faster than normal time. Also, if you look at the top of the screen up here, I think this 314 nautical miles is our total trip remaining. And then that 2238 is the ETA for the final destination, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, we're cruising. We are cruising. Another cool thing I really like about FlightSim is this synthetic vision view. which acts kind of as an artificial horizon, which is super, super cool. And there's terrain awareness here. I think you even see traffic on here. You get traffic alerts. You can look around, you can look down, see what's around you. It's just really nice, and you get some additional information up at the top about what leg you're on. You can bring up your flight plan here. The nav log that tells you what the weather conditions are like at the different legs of the trip you're on, what headings you should be flying, how long each leg should take, how much fuel should be burned on each of these legs. It's a pretty incredible piece of software. So again, if you haven't at least looked at it, I highly recommend it. Another good alternate I've messed with it a little bit, but not too much, is Garmin Pilot. And I know Garmin Pilot has really good integration with Garmin avionics in general that are installed in just a really high percentage of airplanes. So that's another really, really good option. All right, that's us cruising above the clouds. That's crazy. You can even see the left crab, how we're crabbed into the wind a little bit here. If you look at it right here, the plane's clearly not flying perfectly straight. Look at that vapor trail. Are you serious? Or is it a chemtrail? I don't know. Just kidding. I don't really have an opinion about chemtrails, so. It's pretty nuts that Sim even shows that, though. That's gnarly. IFP stop motions. You are taking flight lessons for fun, or you want to work with aviation? I'm just taking them for fun. My brother and I have been into aviation since we were kids because my dad is a private pilot, and we've just been around air shows and airplanes our entire lives, and we're just kind of addicted. So we're constantly around airplanes, and we both finally got to the point in our lives where we decided it's just time to do it. So I started first. I got my private pilot's license and passed my check ride at the end of January. And my brother is now, I think he's supposed to solo for the first time here in a couple of days. So, and then in the meantime, I'm working on my instrument rating just for safety more than anything, just so I have the ability to fly solely with reference to instruments when necessary. That being said, I don't really want to, I'm not using it as an excuse to fly during bad weather. It's more of I'd rather have the skill set and be able to get myself out of bad weather if something happens. I'd rather not fly into bad weather just because I can legally. I think that's not a good idea. So I still like to err on the side of safety and be cautious and be very careful. Stuff like that. But yeah, again, I appreciate you guys hanging out. It's really cool to be able to actually have people chatting and talking back and forth. It makes these streams a lot more interesting. It gives me a chance to interact with you guys, which I really enjoy doing. Very much so. If you guys haven't already, check us out. We have our Instagram. It's instagram.com/BroPilots. I'm sorry, BroPilots_aviation. So, but most of our other accounts are just BroPilots. We have a Twitch page. We have a Mixer.com page, which is also somewhere where we stream our simulator stuff. Obviously, we have our YouTube channel, which I think you guys are pretty familiar with. And then also, if you guys don't mind checking out our Patreon page, it's patreon.com/BroPilots as well. And that's just right now, we don't have any tiers or any crazy subscription stuff. We're really just trying to get this thing off the ground. We really love aviation, and we also really love beautiful cinematography. And so we're hoping to be able to provide really, good, beautiful content of the kind of stuff that's specifically on stuff that's confusing. We have a video out on our YouTube right now. It has quite a few views. There's something like 250,000 views. We were really, really excited to see the growth. And the video outlines what it takes to get your private pilot's license in the U.S. When I was trying to get my license, I didn't really see anything that just showed you what to expect from beginning to end. And so I took that, I thought that was weird. And so I started filming my entire process just so I could put it together in one video, something pretty quick. Very simple, oversimplified, obviously. It doesn't have every detail, but it does have the general, like, what to expect. What are the big parts here? You know, what's at play, and just what someone can expect if they're trying to get their license. So yeah. Appreciate y'all being here. Keep asking questions. I need things to talk about. Turn off the pitot heat for now. I don't think we need that. We're not in any clouds. Let's do a quick check of our engine monitoring. Our temperatures. Our torque looks good. RPM looks good. NG looks good. Temperatures are good. Oil pressure, oil temperature. All of our electrical systems look good. Our fuel quantity looks good. And our pressure looks good as well. Our pressurization inside the cabin. So it looks like our altitude elevation is 9,300 feet. So inside of the altitude, it feels like we're at 9,300 feet. So that our passengers are nice and comfy and don't have to, hopefully their ears aren't popping and they can breathe normally. Oh, cool. IFP step motions. That was the video that brought you here. Well, good deal, man. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any other questions about it, feel free to ask. And show it to all your friends who want to get into aviation. The point of that video is really, we just want more people flying, man. It's so much fun. We just love it. I love being involved in any way in aviation, and in the U.S. at least, generally speaking, it's kind of been on the decline, and I really want to help turn that around. There's another YouTuber named Trent Palmer. He flies a really cool Kit Fox, and he had some cool video. And I just, watching the shots in there and just watching how much, it looked like so much fun. That literally is the video that triggered me to go ahead and just finally do it. Finally go ahead and start getting my private pilot's license. So I just want to be another one of those guys who can do that for someone else, get someone else inspired enough to get into aviation. So if I can help in some way grow the community, that's literally all I want. Do you recommend any material to study for your private pilot's license? Yes. So what I did is before I did anything, like I mentioned in the video, I did my ground training online with Sporties, and knocked out my written test before I even actually started any flight lessons. I just thought that would be the most efficient way to do it, because if you've already passed that, you don't have to worry about it. Plus, you've already been kind of introduced to all the concepts and everything, and so nothing you should really run into in flight should be a surprise. You should already be more or less prepared for it, and so you should be able to do everything in less flight time, meaning you should solo sooner and you should be ready for your check ride sooner, which will ultimately end up saving you time, but most importantly, that should save you a lot of money. And so with Sporties, once I did all that, Sporties has really, really good practice tests, and like a bank of like 1,000 practice questions, including the ones where you have to calculate your weight and balance and calculate your wind correction angles and all kinds of stuff. So tons of really good. I really recommend them as well. Again, I am getting paid by nobody at all when it comes to aviation. Everything I'm saying is these are things I did, and the parts about it that I thought were good, and there's certain parts that I probably could have done better. Going with Sporties is really nice because they have a really nice app. They have an Apple TV app. Their web browser-based app is really good for testing. Creating practice sessions through their stuff is really nice and easy. You could take a bunch of tests and then decide, hey, create another one of these test sessions, but use only like my weakest categories, my weakest questions. And so it'll create like a really difficult test for you, but you're constantly working on your weakest areas. So you're bringing up the level of all of your weakest areas, which makes you overall much more well-rounded and better at it. So the other thing that I highly recommend is just YouTube. For real, like there's a lot of good content on YouTube. be careful, right? Make sure that the content you're looking at is from a good source. But YouTube is immensely helpful. There's a couple of really good mock check rides from Gold Seal. I'm not sure who they are, how they're run, but I think it's a pretty big flight school out of maybe Florida or something. They have some really, really, really good mock check rides. That the oral portion of the check ride, that which is really good and really helpful. The other thing that I listened to a lot of was Jason Shepard's audiobook on audible.com called Passing Your Private Pilot's Check Ride, or Private Pilot Check Ride. And it had a lot of really good. And I probably listened to that 30 times just on my way to and from work, literally every day for like a month, until I could almost just, like when I hear a question in real life, or I hear somebody's asking a question, sometimes I literally hear him answering the question in my head, because I'm so familiar with the content, and there's so many things that he's really helped on. So that just really helps drill it into your brain as well. And he has one for instrument check rides. I think he has one for commercial check rides, and tons of stuff. But yeah, those are some very, very helpful resources. Looks like we're getting thrown around a little bit here. Got a 29 knot crosswind and an 11 knot headwind, so you can kind of see occasionally the nose of the airplane will buffet about, as the British would say. Cooking, cruising. Yeah, you can even see the airplane kind of rocking left and right. Again, if you haven't already, please check us out on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Mixer and Twitch. We'll be posting as much content as we can, as frequently as we can. One thing that we definitely won't do is post content just for the sake of it. So there may be some time in between content, but that's because we don't want to push out a video every week. We want to push out video when we feel like we have enough content filmed, recorded, to actually that makes sense to put out a new video. I want every single video we put out to be just exceptional quality, with an interesting story and a meaningful message. I don't want to just put, hey, I took a flight that was an hour today and here's the video of it. Moving forward, we're definitely going to be focusing on putting out really high quality content. So we have a couple of really cool ones in the works, but just keep an eye out. Something very interesting. I'll give you a little sneak peek or preview, or just let you know what it's about. We have a family friend of ours who purchased the Yak 54 called Russian Thunder that Eric Beard used to fly in the early 2000s. It was an aerobatic airplane that was in a lot of air shows. Incredible airplane. I want to say it's the only one like in the Western Hemisphere. Like there's not a lot of these airplanes around. And he bought it, and he is learning how to fly it with a flight instructor from Russia. He was actually on the championship team of the World Aerobatic Championships in like 1986. His name is Sergei Baidak, and he is really, really talented. And it's really cool because we're getting some awesome footage of them flying together. We're getting footage of their instructional lessons and their, the very first time they're doing barrel rolls and loops and stuff. And it's just, it was actually his first time soloing that airplane by himself. We got that on video. It's going to be really cool. But again, I want to wait until we have just the whole story and an exceptionally good video for you guys to watch. That's just, interesting and inspiring and everything. So again, I can't overemphasize just how much we care about quality. So if you guys want to be a part of that, if you want to help, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/BroPilots, and just any little bit helps, and all of it, 100% of it, is just going back into making cool content. So we appreciate you guys. I like these longer flights. It gives me some time to talk to you guys in between, instead of just constantly flying and getting ready to do take off and immediately do an approach. We actually get to talk a little bit. It's really nice. IFP stop motions. What aircraft are you flying for your instrument license? I am currently flying a Piper Archer. However, the Piper Archer that I am flying has an exceptionally awesome Garmin panel. It's like a full glass panel. Let me actually see if I can bring up a picture of it, because it's very cool. I'm not quite sure actually how I can bring it up. So there's a really nice plug-in recommended that is head shake. It basically shakes your head. So like for the flight simulator, that's interesting. I'll have to look into that. Alright, I found a picture here, but I need to figure out if there's a way that I can bring it up. Alright, let's see. We can do it. I believe in us. We can do this. So if this loads, all right, that's the airplane. But I need to be able to bring up this picture. So hold on. All right, we'll get it. We'll get it. Don't y'all worry about it. We'll take care of you. All right. Also, we're getting pretty close to our first point here. All right, let's just do display capture. All right, here we go. So this right here, this is the plane, the panel that I'm currently learning on. It's a Garmin G3X Touch right here. A Garmin G5 is backup. A Garmin 650 here for GPS navigation, and a couple of other items here. And there's an iPad on the right, but no autopilot. So it's a pretty advanced panel, but it makes for just really, really great situational awareness when you're flying. I feel like I have a much better understanding of just what's going on around me. A lot of people are going to argue and say like, oh, you should be able to fly on steam gauges and be able to do all that. Yeah, you should. Absolutely, I agree. You should be able to do all that stuff in case the plane you're flying in doesn't have all these things on it. But if you can, flying on a glass panel is exceptionally... I think it's so much more advanced, and your situational awareness is so much more improved. Flying GPS courses is so much easier. Everything is just easier, and I think that it doesn't make you worse of a pilot. It makes it safer. I mean, it makes it so much safer that the system on this airplane doesn't require a vacuum system at all, which is normally how your like your attitude indicator and your HSI, and there are certain things like that that need to have a working vacuum system. And a lot of times these vacuum systems fail on people in IMC, and they die because it's so dependent on that. And I think that's just, man, if you're safer for it, don't let anybody ever tell you that you're less of a pilot for flying on a glass panel. I just think ultimately, whatever gets you safely down on the ground again is the plane you need to be flying. So, you're my 100th follower on Instagram. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. If we can get someone to sponsor us, maybe we can do a giveaway. You said, why does it say I'm flying a PA-28? I don't know. I'd like to figure that out myself. So the plugin I'm using for that, I don't know. It says it's getting the plane type from X-Plane, but this is not a PA-28. This is a TBM900. So yeah. Jeff Boyack, thanks for joining. Appreciate it, man. If you could tell your friends and stuff, we can grow this channel a little bit. Hopefully get more people into aviation. That's the end goal here. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm monitoring the chat, and hopefully people enjoy it and don't think I'm dumb. So all right, so we're about 3.5 minutes from VHP, which is our first point. I think we're about, it looks like our progress bar. It says that we're about halfway done with this flight, and things are looking real good. So I think right now is probably not a bad time to go ahead and try to calculate what our descent point is going to be here. So as soon as we make this turn, we'll go ahead and start calculating our descent point. In real life, that controller is going to be facilitating all of our climbs and our descents. We're gonna climb when our controller says to climb and hold the altitude it says to hold within 100 feet, if possible. But since we're not using a controller right now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to time our descent to where we just start descending and basically reach the initial approach fix altitude just as we get there. So in this case, we'll do that as soon as we got in the 2.5 minutes. All right, let's pop out a 4 flight really quick. So right here, remember we're gonna be flying all the way over here, and we need to start this approach at CHRS, CHRSS, at 2,700 feet. You can see that here. We need to descend from 30,000 feet to 2,700 feet. That's gonna take a little bit, right? If we descend at 1,000 feet per minute, that's gonna take us 27 minutes. That's a while. So we need to make sure that we plan that out in advance quite a bit. So that's actually what we can probably do that. So the rule of thumb is to say, take the amount of altitude you have to lose, which in our case is going to be, let's just say it's 3,000 feet. It'll make for easier math. We need to lose 27,000 feet. So what we can do is take that number 27 and multiply it by 3. So just again, for easier math, let's say 27, let's say that's 30 instead of 27. And let's say multiplied by 3 is 90. So say if you need to lose 27,000 feet, you need to start your descent around 90 miles before you reach that. Now this changes depending on how fast your airplane is, yes. And I'm sure there's a more accurate formula for that, but what I'm gonna say is 90 miles. So to do that, we can actually measure, let's see, what's the distance between these 2 points here? That's 64 miles, okay. So then let's try again. So 64, so let's say another 25 miles from Becky. So let's say, okay, around there. So right where this bubble is, this point. What I can do is actually click and hold and add a point here. And that point right there on the map is gonna be where we're gonna start our descent. So I mean, roundabouts. And we'll start like a 7 or 8. Let's start it. Let's do 1,000 foot per minute descent, and we'll see kind of as we get closer and closer whether or not we need to speed that up or slow that down in order to get to the altitude we want to be at. Once we get there, we'll adjust as necessary. So, all right, we're about to make our right turn at our first waypoint here. Jeff Wyack, you are a private pilot from Galt Airport, Tennessee, just northwest of the Mose Vale of KORD. KORD. I'm not 100% sure what that is, but I'm assuming that's like Orlando. Let's look it up. let's just look up yours. You said it's 10C. Okay. All right, so you're near Chicago. Okay, very cool. So it looks like we'll be flying pretty near you here in this flight. So, all right. All right, we're making our right turn here. And it looks like our next leg is going to be Becky in about 17 minutes. So, wow, 17 minutes, that seems quick. All right. Also, one of the coolest features of FlightSim, if you don't know, is this turquoise ring. That turquoise ring is our I think it's, I don't know what they call it. I call it the glide ring. So basically, if you lose your engine, you pitch for best glide, which on this airplane is 120 knots. That's where you'll make it, which is pretty amazing. You can make it to any airport inside that ring, and it's a glide advisor. That's what it's called. That's such a cool safety feature. That's just another one of the many reasons that FlightSim is, I think, pretty invaluable in the cockpit. You said KPIA is like an hour flight. Okay, I see. Very cool. In a 172. Yeah, Chicago O'Hare. That's right. Oh yeah, Chicago O'Hare is the one that's been shut down because of coronavirus, and people are doing touch and goes there. Or is that Midway? Could be Midway. Either way, it's a big airport, and it's kind of nuts that they had to put a temporary TFR except for commercial aircraft because so many people were coming out in their 172s and doing touch and goes in these like Class Bravo airspaces. It's amazing. Oh man. How's everything looking? Power's good, RPM's good, everything's in the green. We're still not in any precipitation, we're not in any clouds, so our pitot heat is off for now. Probably have to turn it on when we do our descent because I think we're going to pass through some clouds. Alright, the fun part of this flight is going to be the approach, so hopefully you guys stick around until that. That'll be cool. I think we can expect the approach in, what, I don't know how long, because our thing here still says 314 miles. Let's take a look, see. So yeah, we should be at our top of descent in about 10 minutes. Probably within 30 minutes or so, I think within 30 minutes or so we'll be there. We can probably be doing the approach. Yeah, FlightSim does sponsor a lot of YouTubers, so that would be awesome. We can get a Bose sponsorship, get us a FlightSim sponsorship, and then it'd be incredible if we can get Garmin, but I don't know. We'll see. That'd be dope. I'd be very, very happy with that. Again, if that happened, this would purely go into making this channel cooler. This is kind of something that my brother and I are just doing on the side because we love aviation. We've always had aviation in our blood, but both of us are software developers for a living. So this isn't something we're trying to make money on or make a living out of. It's just something we just think it'd be cool to put out even more cool aviation-related content because we want more people involved. We want more people doing aviation because it would just be such a shame to see Greenville General Aviation. Sorry. Greenville Aviation is the school that my flight school that I'm learning to fly at. But it would just be a shame to see general aviation decline more than it already has. So hopefully we can just turn that bad boy around and get more people into it and get more people flying. And that's what I want to see, for sure. So IFP Stop Motions. How about you send an email to FlightSim and say, hey, found this really cool YouTube channel called BroPilots, and they need to be sponsored by y'all. So I'm sure they'll listen to you because no one ever listens to me. So keep talking in the chat, y'all. Give us more questions. I'll answer what I can if I know the answer, or if I don't, I'll look it up. That's what I do. If I don't know, I'll at least find out. I'll find the answer to any question. I don't know everything, but I know how to Google so good. I can Google the crap out of anything. Best Googler in the world. If you guys ever have any suggestions for what would make any of our YouTube videos better, or make these streams better, you know, or what would make me better looking, you know, that's always very helpful too. So again, I'm trying to get a little bit ahead of the airplane a little bit. So I know we're going to start descending soonish. So I'm actually going to go ahead and take my altitude selector and move it down to 2,700, which is the next thing we're going to do. Now, moving the altitude selector right now doesn't do anything because the autopilot is set to hold 30,000 feet. So what I'm basically doing right now is just preloading an altitude. For the autopilot to actually go and try to capture that altitude, I have to tell it how. I have to tell it to either use vertical speed mode, VNAV mode, or flight level change mode. There's some stuff that I need to learn a little bit more about. I'm not super good at the whole vertical navigation, the VNAV functionality of this avionics suite, so I need to do some reading on that. But the vertical speed and flight level change modes I'm pretty comfortable with. And so what I'm going to do when it's time to descend, which should be in about 7.5 minutes. I'm going to do vertical speed. I'm just going to hit VS and then pitch down to about 1,000 feet per minute. And at that point, I'm going to go ahead and pull the throttle back to make sure that we don't start descending too quickly or
Destination ATIS is 126.1.
Or getting too much speed or too much temperature or anything. Make sure everything is looking good. So, FlightSim just told me that the destination ATIS from the airport is 126.1. We've already looked that up, we've already loaded it in there, and we're actually already monitoring that frequency. So as soon as it's in range, we'll just start to hear it. How do you estimate your fuel? In real life, I fly the Archer, and the Archer in real life, not the worst case scenario, but like if I'm getting pretty poor fuel performance at like max power, I calculate burning about 10 gallons of fuel per hour. So I know that if I'm burning 10 gallons an hour and I hold 48 gallons of fuel on that airplane, then I'm going to get, a little under 5 hours of engine on time. You can't really use distance to calculate because depending on the winds, distance can vary greatly, but the amount of time it takes is going to be pretty close. So I'll calculate with 10 hours of fuel. With this TBM so far, I'm kind of just been estimating based on my experience. Again, I should look it up. I should just find out what the gallons per hour fuel burn rate is on this plane and use that to calculate. But basically right now I'm flying amount of time that I know I've flown before, just based off of my experience. So far we've flown like, I'm not even sure how long it's been. Actually, we forgot to turn the timer on, so we actually know. It's been almost an hour since we started the plane. And we went from 148 gallons of fuel on each side. So let's say 20. We burnt about 50 gallons so far. So let's just say, okay, that's a good safe number, about 50 gallons an hour in this plane. So if we have 148 gallons in each wing, so that's almost 300 gallons total, we could probably get, just shy of 5 hours of flight time here. Now, there are certain rules and restrictions when flying IFR, so you need to be able to make it to your primary airport, shoot an approach, go to your alternate airport, shoot an approach, and land that approach, and then have an additional 45 minutes of fuel on board. That's the legal requirement by the FAA, and so you need to make sure that whenever you are planning the amount of fuel you need, that's how much fuel you have. Also, in FlightSim, if you plan a flight, it should also tell you roughly how much, if you have a certain subscription to FlightSim, they have a performance subscription. So when you put it in your flight, it has a performance profile for a lot of airplanes. So if I go here, let's bring up flights. Let's see a previous flight I did. And under the performance profile here for the Archer at 75% best power, it knows how much fuel you should use. So going down lower, flight fuel is 5 gallons here, which I think that's pretty awesome. This will even do like runway calculations and stuff for you. So another one of the reasons that I love FlightSim. All right, we're getting close-ish to our descent point, so we gotta be ready for that very soon. How much do you pay per gallon in real life? So right now, avgas at my airport is about $4.50 a gallon. So if you're burning 10 gallons an hour at $4.50 a gallon, it's about $45 an hour in fuel cost alone. So, but that's just fuel, right? So if you're renting an airplane and the rental rate is wet, meaning it includes fuel, you don't really have to worry about it. And the airplane that I fly, the rental rate is $140 an hour. So that includes fuel, costs, any other costs, oil, tie-down fees, all that kind of stuff. So, all right, we're getting close. A little bit less than 4 minutes. And we will be descending. We've already briefed our approach. We have our minimums loaded in. We'll see once the ATIS starts coming through. We'll see if the barometer setting is what we expect it to be. We can use ForeFlight right now to check what the current METAR is for this airport. And currently the barometer setting is 29 or 89. So we'll see how good X-Plane is at giving us the correct METAR information when we need it. Also, a quick side note, I'd like to thank my dad who gave me this camera. So, appreciate that, Dad. If you guys are fortunate enough to have your dad still in your life, please give him a call. Say hello, say what's up. I know they always appreciate it. My dad is the reason that I'm into aviation, so I'm very thankful for that. Have I been flying more now that the airspace is cleaner? Not more. Probably about the same, to be honest. Although it is interesting because there are certain airports around that are normally pretty busy that aren't now, which is very, very interesting. If you are learning to fly instrument and you are pretty intimidated by all of the radio chatter, now is a good time to try to get into that and at a lower saturation rate. It's definitely a little bit easier. Personally, I really like the challenge. I like to just be thrown in the deep end and kind of be forced to handle it, and because ultimately and eventually you're going to be dealing with that level of saturation. So I spend a lot of time, it's super nerdy, but like driving to and from work. Sometimes I'll just throw on the radio. I'll just pull up my local tower on live ATC on the app and just listen. Try to guess what the guys are going to say, guess what the controller is going to say to this guy. You know, you can't guess tail numbers and stuff, but you can kind of guess if you know what runway is active. You can probably guess what kind of taxi instructions are going to be given. You can guess what kind of pattern entry is going to be given. My home airport is a controlled airport, and so there's a lot of radio chatter, a lot of actual instruction from the tower. So that will help a lot. Just because half of being good at radio communications is just knowing what to expect. It's really not that bad. If you know what to expect, you genuinely can almost guess what they're about to say anyway, and then just kind of confirm it. Okay, we're about where we need to be for our descent. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and do vertical speed down 1,000 feet per minute, And pull that throttle back just a hair. Just so we don't go crazy here. We only have a 1 knot headwind. How's that even possible? We're at 30,000 feet. That's not real. That can't be real. That's probably just wrong, right? Right? That's probably wrong. That's nuts. All right, we're starting our descent, ladies and gentlemen. So fasten your seatbelts, stow your tray tables, and give me all of your money, and then we'll be ready to go. All right, so we are about 4 minutes and 50 seconds, so about 26 nautical miles from Becky. At which point we'll make a left turn and continue down to Chris, which is our initial approach fix for this approach for the RNAV runway 4 into KPIA. Also, if anybody's wondering where the music is coming from, the music is coming from musicbed.com. Also not sponsored by them. I actually pay for a subscription to their stuff because I want to be able to play music on the stream here because I think it's cool. So, although if it bothers you guys, let me know. I kind of like having music in the background. I'm a very musical person in general. Play the bass, play guitar, play some drums. You can see some musical instruments back there. I like music, so for me it's actually fun just to be able to listen to music while I fly. So this way we can all be listening to the same music. So yeah, musicbed.com, really good stuff if you make videos on your own. Also just really good selection for stuff like that, so check them out. Another one that I like that I've used in the past is Epidemic Sound. They have a lot of good stuff as well, so check all of them out. So on the fly, you need to be calculating your descent. So every couple of minutes, check and see how much time you have left until you're at your initial approach fix, and check and see how much altitude you have left to lose and what altitude you're at now, and see whether or not your rate of descent is going to match up. So every couple of minutes, we'll just cross-check all of that stuff to make sure we're descending at a proper rate. At the moment, we still have 3 minutes until Becky, and then from Becky, we got like another, I think it should take around 12 minutes to get from Becky to Chris, I think. So we should be at about roughly 15,000 feet by the time we cross Becky. I don't think we're going to make that. So let's go ahead and steepen our our descent quite a bit right now until we figure out our lives. It'll be a little bit more clear after we cross Becky because we're going to have an actual time to our initial approach fix here, an actual distance and everything, so it'll be a little bit easier to tell what's going on there. The wind measurement is not accurate in X-plane. It may have the correct wind speed, but it's showing you the wrong speed. Which my airspeed, my ground speed, or what? There's a couple of different speeds that it shows here. So also the speed on the top right of the overlay on the stream where it says 337 knots, that's my ground speed, which should actually be pretty accurate because we're going 220 in the air right now, but we're 30,000 feet up, which means the air is a lot less dense, and we're higher, or a good bit higher than the, above the Earth's surface. So FlightSim is showing my ground speed at 340 knots right now. So I think that's actually pretty accurate, just because that 340 is our speed over the ground, not our speed through the air. The speed right here on the primary flight display in the plane is our speed through the air, which includes, it doesn't account for, our ground speed is our airspeed plus the wind speed in general. So if we have a 50 knot tailwind, that's going to be adding 50 knots to our ground speed. And so the ground speed accounts for all that stuff. It accounts for elevation and air density and all of that. So FlightSim's using our GPS location to calculate that. Yeah, I'm not really sure why that wind speed's off. We could totally check right now what the winds aloft are in FlightSim if we really want. Let's do it. Let's do it for fun. All right, what do we got? Let's check what the winds aloft here above KCMI are. At, what are we at, 24,000 feet? 21 knots is what it says. So it's actually about right. Look at that, because we have a 21 knot crosswind coming in here. So it's surprisingly close. I'm impressed. We're not getting pushed one way or the other too much just because it's a crosswind and it's not a direct head or a tailwind. All right, almost at Becky here. Igor Milyaev, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Tell your friends. Hopefully we can get a lot of cool aviation content out soon and continuously. So thanks for hanging out. We're going to turn on our pitot heat. It's because we think we're about to be going through some of this, some precipitation here. So excuse me, the sun is over here. It's very, very bright. And so if I have to squint a little bit, I can't see my screen super well. So I apologize for anything that causes. All right, we should be hanging to left here. Or did we already do it? Did I miss it? I could have missed it. Oh, okay, so right now it's flying direct KPIA. So now that we're past this final point, what we can do is go to flight plan. No, sorry, procedure. And activate the approach. Let's say ATC cleared us, said, hey, you know, TBM 69 Tango Bravo cleared through the, you know, just so I know, this gave us a descend and maintain, fly direct, Chris. So we'll select the approach, and you can see right here that our GPS is now flying direct to Chris initial approach fix. That's a nice plane. All right, so now we're going there. We're descending. So now, all right, you can see our torque is a little too high. Let's back up the power just a little bit. We're descending still at 2,000 feet per minute. We have 10 minutes, and we need to lose, how much is that? 16-ish, 16,000 feet. So it looks like we're descending a little quick now. So we can probably actually slow down that descent to, let's say, like roughly there. All right, so we're speeding up. We're not speeding up. Yeah, we're speeding up a little bit, but we're also descending. Air is becoming more dense, so we really got to start watching this power. We're going to keep our eye on it. So I got to make sure that I'm ready to just keep creeping this thing down, or else we're going to get a little bit too much power out of our engine. We're going to stress the gearbox, and things are going to explode, and we're going to die. We don't want that. None of that. All right, we're also about to pass through this transition altitude. And normally, I think ForeFlight's going to give us our nearest ATIS, so let's wait on that. I'm pretty sure it's going to give us the ATIS for KBMI, so let's see if it does here in a second. Again, one of these awesome things about ForeFlight.
Transition altitude. Nearest altimeter, 2981.
There you go, 2981. Awesome, love ForeFlight. Makes it easy. Plus, it reminds you that you're going through that point. It's really good. All right, we're still going. We've got 9 minutes and 50 seconds. Descending at 1,500 feet per minute. We still have about 15,000 feet to lose. I think we're on a pretty decent descent rate right now. So we'll just keep recalculating as we're getting closer and closer. You're flying with me, aerobatics. There we go. I hope you're in an aerobatics approved airplane. I'm not trying to fly aerobatics in a Cessna 152, am I right?
Greater Peoria RGNL.
All right, there you go. There's the ATIS.
2200 Zulu weather. Wind shear alert.
Wind shear.
Wind 020 at 11 variable 350 to 050 gust 29. Visibility 3. Rain.
Visibility 3.
Sky conditions 800 broken. 5,000 broken. 9,000.
It's not great weather.
Forecast. Temperature 9. Dew point 7. Altimeter 2985.
2985. So we'll change our
Arriving
barometer.
Runways 1304. Departing runways 1304.
All right, so 04 is an arriving
Eyes
runway,
on
so we
initial
can probably
contact
still
in
get our
Foxtrot.
RNAV 04. Information Foxtrot. So we would let the approach controller know that we have information Foxtrot, and we'd like the RNAV for runway 4. They would probably approve it just because they are using it as a runway right now. That's one of the active runways. And so we'd probably get that, and they'd be vectoring us, either vectoring or give us a direct clearance to Chris, and they'd be kind of getting our altitudes down. We're almost there, y'all. 15,000 feet. All right, about 10,000. Let's say 10, about 10, 12,000 feet to lose. 8 minutes at 1,700 feet per minute. We should make it. We should make it. So I'm just gonna keep descending here. And then basically what we should do is we should get down to 2,700 before we need to be, in which case we'll just hold 2,700 feet. Just keep an eye on that power. Make sure we don't go to get too much power. There's a freeware mod for the default X-Plane 172. Turns it into a bush plane. That sounds like fun. That sounds like fun. Low and slow. If you guys like bush planes in general, check out Trent Palmer's YouTube channel. He has really, really cool content. Flies this awesome Kit Fox. I think like a 5 series with a really cool avionics suite. Has a Garmin G3X Touch in there. Cool stuff. He's like a drone pilot in real life. That's what he does for a living. For movies. And so all of his video footage just looks amazing. It's a really good watch. So check him out, Trent Palmer. Alright, we're still haven't broken through the clouds just yet. We also probably should have turned off our landing lights. But I'm trying to get better at using the checklists that are built in here, but I missed that. Let's do taxi lights. Well, now we're descending. Now the landing lights actually have to be on, so. I'm blaming you, Igor. It's probably your fault that I forgot to turn the lights on, right? All right, 12,000 feet. We got about 10,000 feet to lose. 7 minutes at 1,700 feet per minute. Again, we should make it. I think worst case, we can kind of chop the power and dive. Not a good thing to do in real life, but again, in real life, we would be getting clearance, or we would be getting instructions from ATC, like right now saying, 69 Tango Bravo, descend and maintain, 7,000, descend and maintain, 4,000, descend and maintain, 2,700, whatever. They'd be leading us all the way down and then saying, TBN 69 Tango Bravo, cleared ILS, or cleared RNAV approach number, cleared RNAV runway 4. So we'd be getting instructions every step of the way. The only reason we're having to really calculate this out and do the math right now is because we're basically not on a clearance. We're kind of just guessing. It's almost as if we're flying VFR. But you can't fly VFR above 18,000 feet. So that's fun old FAA regulations. All right, pitot heat's on because we're about to looks like we're about to go through these clouds. If we had any danger of icing, we'd also make sure these were on. We would have had to have checked the icing reports beforehand to make sure, which ForeFlight also makes it really easy to check that stuff. All right, y'all. This is the most difficult and most intensive part of this whole flight. So pray for me so we can do this right and make it. On takeoff and on landing, you're supposed to have your landing lights on, not your taxi lights. Your taxi lights on while you're taxiing, and then you turn on your landing light. That's what's recommended, just for visibility's sake. Some people, what they do is they only turn on their landing light when they're cleared for landing or cleared for takeoff, just kind of instinctively, so that if you ever don't remember for sure, you're like, oh wait, was I cleared to land or was I cleared to take off? You just look at your landing light, and if it's on, if you're in the habit of just automatically doing it whenever you receive a landing or takeoff clearance, you can use it to kind of double check yourself to make sure that you are cleared for either landing or takeoff. Which that's a good idea. I've started to I try to do that as much as I can because I agree. I think that's a good idea. All right, I'm gonna throttle back some. Let's slow this down. I don't want to be going quite as fast anymore. All right, where are we? We have 4 minutes and 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 feet to lose. Yeah, we're good. We can actually slow down this descent. We don't need this descent quite so quickly. We're doing good. Budgeted our time nicely. That's awesome. My brother just sent me a picture of, he's watching this stream at his house on his big TV in his living room. So, what's up, Tony? Also, Jake, if you're watching, what's up, buddy? Jake is Tony's son. So, all right, we're making a turn here. What are we doing? Also, Jake loves airplanes, so he's gonna be a little pilot one day. 4 minutes, 4,000 feet. All right, we should have plenty of room here. We should make this altitude no problem. After that, what I gotta do is we need to slow down. We need to get maybe a notch of flaps in here, and we're reaching an altitude where we need to go ahead and bring in our inertial separator. Our inertial separator is coming on. In about 30 seconds, we'll get a warning saying, hey, inertial separator's on, and we should see a dip in our power, which is fine at this stage because we need to be slowing down anyway. Ready to go. We're just descending here. All right, so we're about to get in it here. Not gonna be able to see anything. Actually, kind of already can't. It's an instrument approach for you. Flying into that soup. Also, quick side note, if you guys haven't seen the movie Pearl Harbor, that's a cool movie. Good movie, a lot of cool airplane stuff. Also just a cool, I think a well-depicted history movie if you're into any kind of history. So, man, some movie suggestions. All right. 3 minutes. Less than 2,000 feet. Yeah, man, we got this. Still flying real quick. Let's slow this bad boy down. Come on. Come on. I gotta get better at that too. It's, you know, it's pretty quick when you're descending, trying to slow down to like an approach speed. So it almost does make sense to make sure you, before you hit your initial approach fix, slow down and hit your altitude before that. So it gives you some time to level off, and actually pull the power back. And so you should, in theory, you should have a little bit more time to slow yourself down. So that way you're not trying to do it kind of in the middle of your turn to final or anything like that. All right, 2.5 minutes, 1,000 feet. 1,000 feet to go. There's a lot of turbulence. Look at this. There's a 13 knot tailwind, a 13 knot crosswind. Oh man, like look at this. Even now it's the plane's getting lost. The plane's getting lost in that. Look at that. Where? Oh, it's gone. Look at that. Oh man, can't see anything. What's up? What's down? This is an instrument approach right here. Boy, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. All right. The other thing we probably would need to be doing now is getting ready to put in the tower frequency into our main, into our radio. So I'm actually going to see if I can. I should have had this done before, but the tower frequency is 124.0. Oh, look at that wind. That thing is fighting a lot. Come on. Yeah, we should have had this done. Flying an approach like this is not the time to be tuning in your frequency. So bad habit, don't do this. So let's just say we put that in our primary. So now we're talking to tower. This weather is real, though. This is exactly what it's like right now here. So I'm following the real world weather right now. Also, who's excited for Top Gun 2 coming out? I was really sad when they pushed it from June to December, but I am so stoked. All right, look, our airspeed is going all over the place here. But we're slow enough to where what we can actually do is go ahead, now that we're under 185 knots, we can take down our landing gear, which is coming down now, and our first notch of flaps coming down now. And I'm gonna make sure I compensate with enough power because that's gonna slow us down quite a bit. But I do need to make sure we don't clear 75 knots with those things in place. All right, we got 54 seconds. We're already at 2,700 feet, that's great. The next thing we need to do is put our altitude select at 2,400 feet and descend, after the right turn, descend down to 2,400 feet, which is where we are going to, oh, it starts raining, look at that. And that's where we're gonna intercept the glide slope and start our descent down into the runway. Oh, this is a legit instrument approach, look at that, guys. All right, we got flaps and gear down. We still have one more notch of flaps to go. That's scary. This would be scary in real life. Look at all that turbulence. Look at our airspeed flying around. How much work the autopilot's having to do to keep us on course. It's gusty. It's gusting, I think it was like almost 30 knots. All right, this is what we're here for. I might add a little bit more power in. I don't love. All right, right turn. All right, so we actually stay at 2,700 here. So if we take a closer look at our approach chart here. From here, we're still going to be at 2,700. And then we're going to hit Sadie and do a right-hand 90-degree turn. And then from there, we'll descend down to 2,400 till we hit paddle. And that's where we're going to intercept the glide slope and take that down into the runway. Again, quick side note, this is me learning how to do instrument. So don't take anything that I say on fact. Just do your own research, please. This is all my research that I'm pretty sure is right. Please double check everything I say. Whew. All right. So 125 knots is actually the maximum flaps, like full flaps extension speed. So at this speed, we could really actually put in a second notch of flaps. But since we're really close to it and we keep kind of peaking above it a little bit, I probably wouldn't. I'd wait till we're like comfortably under it and probably won't do that until we actually see the runway. So we'll be hanging out in this configuration for quite a while. I have to put up a curtain. Look how bright I look, like an angel. You're glowing. We can kind of see the ground a little bit. So we probably won't go all the way down to minimums then. What were the minimums here? Like 600 some feet? 860 feet. Let's just double check that. Yep, 860 feet. All right, we got 1 minute until our right-hand turn. I think that'll be a right-hand turn to a heading of 040, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, sorry. I'll plug my iPad here because it's gonna prevent me from moving the yoke for my landing here. So, all right, airspeed looks good. A little low actually. Let's add some power here. Let's bring up to 50. All right, right turn to 040 in 10 seconds. Autopilot is still handling this. We're still on autopilot. What we're gonna do is just a little bit above minimums is probably when we're gonna actually disengage the autopilot, because autopilot is probably doing a better job of flying this approach than I would by hand. So we'll let it do as much of this as we can, especially in this kind of turbulence. Although, if there's too much turbulence, the autopilot might just automatically disconnect. So we have to be aware of that, be ready to take over the controls at any point right now. So kind of preparing, getting my fingers, my feet on the rudder pedals, getting my hands and everything ready here, ready in position. We have 3 minutes until our final approach point right now, so that's where we should intercept the glide slope. What that means is right here on this primary flight display, you see the G right here. That means that when the glide slope comes down, once it gets intercepted here, it's going to start to follow it. In order for that to work, I need to put on approach mode. So now that I turned on approach mode, you can see that the glide path / vertical track pitch functionality has been like loaded into standby. So as soon as this is intercepted here, this GP part is going to go over here to the left and turn green and be the active control of the pitch axis. So that's what we're waiting on now. Sync up the heading bug, so it's pointed there. So you'll see by the time this is done right here, by the time the timer hits 0 is when the glide path should be right there, right at where we are, and we should intercept it then. Alright, if you're just joining us, this is the interesting part. You can't see the runway. This is what it looks like outside. This is an instrument approach. Alright, y'all, this is hard IMC. I don't remember, what were the ceilings at?
Greater Peoria RGNL Information Foxtrot.
And our visibility was like 3 miles,
2200 Zulu weather.
which is low.
Wind 020 at 12 gust 23.
Gust 23.
Visibility 3. Rain. Sky conditions 1400 broken.
1,400 broken.
5600 overcast.
Alright, we'll see about that. We'll be the judges. Alright, you see that glide path coming down? Still see nothing out the front. This is nothing. What you see is probably just like a reflection on these windows here. We have nothing right now. We're about to intercept this glide slope, and you'll see the nose pitch down to intercept that. And watch, keep an eye on this glide path here. This Jeep, oh, right there. Automatically, since it intercepted it, it goes and it's gonna try to pitch down. So I'm gonna make sure I'm managing. Now we're pitching down. I don't want to speed up, so I'm gonna bring my power back a little bit. So now the airplane is following that glide path all the way down to the runway. Now we just keep an eye on the airspeed because it's really gusty, it's really windy. We have an 18 knot headwind. But it's, remember, it's gusting from like 11 to like 20, so we can see some pretty big variations in that airspeed. So we just make sure we're in a good, safe airspeed. So we're gonna, as soon as we see the runway, we're gonna power back a good bit so that we're well under 125, and they're gonna put in that last notch of flaps. Now we're flying right at the runway. So we're at 2,100 feet. Our minimums are 860 feet. So we're still about 1,200 feet above. Now they said the ceiling was at 1,300, which doesn't seem super, oh yeah it is, so look at that. So that's the ceiling right there. We just kind of broke out a little bit, but we still don't see the runway, right? We have to be able to see the runway. And at the moment, we only have 3 miles of visibility. So we're still 2 miles from Juneau. And then Juneau is, I think, another 2 miles or so until the runway. So we probably won't see it until close to this Juneau point, which is in 1.5 miles now. Mr. Safety Forever, IMC indeed. Indeed, look at this. This is some hard IMC. Even now, even though we're underneath, we've broken out of the clouds, we still can't see that runway. That visibility is just not enough. Plus, the sun's in my face. I can't see the screen.
2 mile final, runway 04.
All right, 2 mile final. Oh, goodness. There it is. We have the runway environment in sight. You see that? All right. Officially, legally, we're above minimums, and we can see the runway environment. We can make this landing. This is a legal landing right now, and we'll make it happen. Again, I'm going to let this thing take us down pretty dang close to minimums, because this is pretty gnarly. Let's do a real quick landing checklist. Everything's good here. Parking brakes off. Gears down. Flaps are... I'm gonna go ahead and bring that power back a little bit and bring that second notch of flaps in, slow it down. Lights are on, pumps are on, everything's good to go.
500
feet above the ground.
500.
I'm gonna bring this power back even more. I'm gonna bring in these flaps. Alright, come on. So, alright, flaps coming in. Going to landing flaps. That's gonna slow us down a good bit. Now I'm gonna close to minimums is when I'm gonna disable this this here autopilot. So here we go. Minimums. Alright, autopilot's coming off. I'm gonna try my very best to still land this plane. Although this is pretty brutal. This is I'm Gus, and I am not a TBM pilot. I just like to fly the sim. Alright, keep going in. This is so weird. I'm flying IMC, but the sun's in my eyes. Alright, bring that power back. Alright, we're at flight idle. And then get ready to bring in some reverse thrust here. Airspeed.
Airspeed.
Ow! Oh, okay, not a great landing. I'm fired because I hit that at negative 400 feet per minute. What? Don't fire me. That's a little plugin I have that rates your landing. So I guess I'd have been fired based on that one. We can probably bring up the taxic diagram here on FlightSim. Where are we going? All right, we'll take HS by the hot spot. We'll take a left on Echo here. Bring these flaps back up. Ooh, it's so bright. All right. We'd get our taxi clearance from the tower here, or from ground, and we'd just be doing whatever they're telling us to do. And we're actually going to be pretty much going to the base of the tower, which is right up here. Right there to the right. Alright, let's whip it around real quick. Alright, stopping here. Parking brake on, pitot heat off. The inertial separator is coming back off. Let's turn off our AC. Dump all the pressure. Lights are coming off. Tram is off. Fuel pump is off. Fuel selector back to manual. Ignition can stay on auto. Lights coming off. Pull this power down. We need to let the engine run for a couple of minutes just to let the oil cool. But this will come down. Okay. And high idle down and shut it off. Alright, put the chocks on. Let's check the payload. How much fuel we got? So 100 gallons left pretty much in each wing. So we burned about 48 gallons in each wing. So hey, we made it. Look at that. It's like 350 nautical mile flight. You gotta reach negative 2,500 when flying with the virtual airline for it to pass.